The Red Eye Radio podcast is a service of Freightliner and Detroit.
Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. This is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome to Tuesday. He's Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing great. How's everybody doing? It's going to be a great show. All right, so we mentioned a little bit. It wasn't even worth mentioning or reading because it was such a dumb article in the New Yorker about Chick-fil-A sort of invading New York and how uncomfortable it is because they're Christians and all that. And there's lines around the block for people waiting to get in to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, because there are no churches in New York, right? There aren't any Christians in New York at all.
Well, they're not
right?
serving chicken.
Yeah.
They may not be as popular. But the Babylon Bee, which is like the Onion, evil Christians oppress secular New Yorkers with delicious chicken sandwiches. Horrifying reports out of New York City indicate that oppressive Christians have begun an all-out assault on secular New York citizens by attacking them with delicious Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches. The opening of several Chick-fil-A locations throughout the city confirmed New Yorkers' worst fears that Christians had begun a brutal offensive consisting primarily of offering tasty chicken sandwiches to hungry citizens who would like to eat them. Quote, remember, this is a fake story. This is a Christian-fueled hate crime on par with the Inquisition, the Salem witch trials, and the Crusades, one author wrote in the New Yorker. These Christian crusaders must be stopped before everyone in New York City gets a quality meal with excellent service at a decent price.
Next thing you know, people in New York will actually be going to church.
Think of the children.
Yeah.
At publishing time, Christian cultural war strategists had announced plans to open a new front in the culture war by launching a new Hobby Lobby location in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Oh, just great. You know, I saw, what was it? Must be the Rasmussen poll. I just saw the headline, but I'm guessing it's Rasmussen because they're the ones that are actually doing the likely voter polls, the presidential poll. Yeah. And I saw the one that said, Donald Trump ticks up to 51%.
Mm-hmm.
And, I sit back and I think the Comey thing is part of it, too. No matter how manic, and that's how I refer to Trump at times, taking one position, then switching it, then moving, on this and the way that the misinformation comes out of the administration. And as we've said, if you follow that day by day, that'll drive you crazy. What you have to actually look at is what does he actually get done? And we've said this since the election. We're not going to go through every tweet that he does every day like most shows do. We're going to say, okay, what is he proposing? Will it work? If he gets it into legislation, then we'll either say it's good or bad, depending on how we feel.
What does he actually do? What is he actually working to actually get done, not tweeting about or making comments on, because that can vary. We talked about making policy on the fly with the steel workers and everything else, but, okay, we also pared it down and said this is where it will likely go, and it will likely mostly be aimed at China in terms of tariffs. And that's kind of where we are.
Right. So, some of the tweets last week, you and I talked about just briefly, but the tweets on possibly what we might do when it comes to, shooting missiles or anything like that, or we disagree with completely. That's getting into territory that gets us furious because you do not, as president, when you plan to go to any type of altercation, tweet out that it may be coming in a certain amount of time. Then when it doesn't come in a certain amount of time, then say, well, it's going to come again. You just don't do that. That isn't proper protocol. But for all the things that Donald Trump may do wrong, the reason that his polling keeps going up is because no matter how I'll say this just to make the point. No matter how crazy you may think Donald Trump is, the left is crazier.
Oh, yeah, all day, every day.
No matter what Donald Trump does, they one-up it.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the Comey interview and how many FBI agents, and we could sit there and spend the next 15, 20 minutes talking about even, the liberal media outlets that really understand that it was really weak from Comey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was extremely weak. You and I talk about 9 million watched it, and I guess that's okay for Sunday night for a network, but that means...
well, I would say it's okay for a Sunday night 2020 episode.
Right. Well,
I mean, it's again, okay. It's not the worst ratings. It's definitely not American Idol.
No, it's definitely not American Idol. It's definitely not Roseanne. But there was no payoff for it. It was all hype. And what you got, and you and I said this, and I was amazed how many other outlets didn't use the same adjectives, but were making the same point. He came across as quite childlike.
Well, he did, because what you're looking for in the response, I think what the left was looking for, was some kind of schooling of the president by the former FBI director. Someone who could come in, an analytical mind, and just put him in his place, right? Someone from experience.
Right.
And what they got was a guy that's basically, writing like a third grader. I mean, they were looking for him to be different than the president. Again, you can say what you will about the president's demeanor and his writing style or talking style or anything else, but that's a given. What they were looking for, many people, and, I was telling you during the pre-show meeting, it could have been 90 million, but there was no payoff. That 9 million was curious, and you made the valid point, that it's pretty much the people who are inside the Beltway, not necessarily physically inside the Beltway, but who kind of, in their mind, live inside that Beltway and watch, basically, I mean, if you look at 9 million spread out all over all the major cities, and then, medium-sized cities all over America, that's really not that impressive. But even so, if it were 90 million, it's no payoff. It's nothing at the end. You're coming away with zero, because the left was looking for this to be, as they've been looking for everything to be since January of 2017, the gotcha. Aha, we gotcha. Aha, we gotcha. Now, we don't know what's going to come from the Cohen raid. We don't know what's going to come from the Molar investigation. We have no idea. But I can tell you right now that so far, from the Molar investigation, no one has been able to identify a crime. No one has been able to identify. When you and I look at the president or follow the president and say, okay, this is, what we judge on are the things that he's really working toward. Not a tweet, but is he really working with Congress to try and push for something? And then ultimately, does he get something done? Then we judge him based on that work or something that he did, whether we like it or not. We break it down, or we compliment it if we do like it.
I think what people must understand is the reason that we do that, because we'll get, you guys don't hit on the tweet that he made today. Yeah, because we've known who Donald Trump is for the last 30 years.
It hasn't changed.
Right. Donald Trump that's not new territory. New territory is, for us, new territory for Donald Trump is, what is he going to do legislative-wise?
Right. What can he actually get done?
What is he going to get done? So that's what we focus on. And we figure out there's enough other shows out there that focus in on the tweets and every little, minutia of everything that comes out of the White House each and every day. We've often said, look, we're a show that likes to deal with the issues and the substance of the issues, and we're going to continue to do that. We understand that in this political environment, we have to talk politics, and we'll do this. And we'll do that. But when you look at the president, he's been a known quantity for 30 years, and especially we have got to know him completely as to his personality and his idiosyncrasies over the last 3 years, without question, and added a fourth year when he was thinking of running in 11-12. And so we know who he is. Mm-hmm. So there's really nothing new. Comey has been promoted for the longest time as somebody who's an FBI director, and you have, until you prove otherwise, you have the image of an FBI director. Comey was really a relative unknown to the mass public until July of 2016. Mm-hmm. And then people started judging him, and people wanted to give him, as they always do, with, I think, when we talk about somebody in law enforcement that high, wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Well, after last night, I don't know how you can be a Democrat or a Republican, a liberal or conservative, and not say, this guy's odd.
Right.
This guy, for being in law enforcement, that is not the kind of person that we want as the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Mm-hmm. To do an interview that was so petty and something that I didn't even think of, and this was said by an FBI agent who used to work with Comey, and he said one of the things he said that really bothered me the most is how he'd get on national TV and start talking about confidential conversations he had with the president. Because it doesn't matter whether you like the president or not. You don't do that.
Well, you don't do that for a number of reasons.
As a law enforcement officer, you don't do that. As an FBI director,
right? And even Attorney General Sessions. Remember, the liberals on the Senate panel were pushing him to talk about things that he said. Look, until the president speaks about it in public himself, which would indicate to me he's not going to invoke executive privilege about that conversation or those items, I'm not going to tell you what we talked about, because I don't know if he wishes to invoke executive privilege on any given item, and I'm not going to make that choice for him. I cannot make that choice for him. So, and we said this when he was talking in front of the Senate, and at that time, there was the rumor of the book deal. And I forget when the book deal was signed, but they were talking about that book deal right after his second appearance, Comey's, on Capitol Hill. And I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. What are you going to tell in this book? Because my question is, what is it that you get to tell? And what is it that I know what the liberals want you to say, but how much of this is going to get you into hot water? I don't think this is over in terms of Comey throwing himself under the bus here. I really don't. Because this is a guy who clearly wants to talk. This is a guy who clearly wants to talk about himself.
And when we talk, for example, of Trump was a presidential candidate. All presidential candidates at some time go over the top. All presidents at some time go over the top and say things that just absolutely, I've talked about this in the past. George W. Bush, even though he was mild-mannered, could say things that were absolutely outrageous and completely and totally unacceptable to us.
Sure.
When he came out and, for example, during McCain-Feingold and said, I'm going to sign it even though I know parts of it are unconstitutional. Well, to us, there's not much more radical than saying, as a president, I know the bill I'm going to sign is unconstitutional, but I'll let the courts deal with it.
Now, Trump has said a lot of things and tweeted a lot of things. Now, aside from the, giving the Russians the heads up on the Syrian missile thing, which I didn't agree with, I don't know if Trump has ever topped that by George W. Bush. I'd honestly have to go back and look at all the things that Trump has said so far as president. But especially when signing something into law and you say, I know parts of it are unconstitutional and I'll let the courts go through that, which, by the way, took years.
Yeah, and we were livid at that point. And Obama, we've gone through the number of things that he has said. I just wanted to relate to somebody who was a Republican so people can relate to it and know how we judge things. But for Comey, he's not a politician. That's the whole point. He's not a politician. The political rhetoric is not supposed to come from an FBI director.
Right.
He's in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. That's what he is. He's in law enforcement. He's supposed to present himself as a law enforcement officer, somebody who may want to talk about the law being broken. For example, referring to Trump as a mob boss because he doesn't like his personality. Mm-hmm. Trump's not a mob boss.
No, he's not.
And anything that Comey brought up did not indicate that he was a mob boss. What you got was petty drama from the former FBI head. That's all you got. You got petty drama.
Well, I don't know. Is there anything that the president has leaked? Now, maybe we wouldn't learn it so quickly as we have learned it from the former FBI director, but we know Comey said it. He admitted it. He was bragging about it, about how he leaked information to his buddy, the professor.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of the actions, again, we can talk about what the president has said, and then we judge him on his actions. That's a given. That's a known quantity. But it's also, as you just pointed out, political. And politicians go over the top all the time. Like it or dislike it, believe it's a valid excuse or not, that's not the point. The point is that if you're the former head of an agency like the FBI, and you decide to go out and start telling about conversations you had in private with a president at the time, where in the world could this end? Is this a new line for the left?
Well, and unless there's some law breaking being done, and he didn't mention any law breaking.
No,
he just doesn't like the guy.
No, he didn't.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It's just sad. Harry Anderson, the great comedic actor, dead at age 65.
Well, certainly I can.
How many fingers am I holding up?
There better not be just one.
He was, you know what was great about him? He made silly funny. Because if you think about Night Court, so much about Night Court was actually a silly show.
Yeah,
and he made it. It was the things he did would be downright silly, and a lot of times I don't find silly funny, and he made it funny. He made it natural.
Yeah. It's hard to make a show like that that's based really on silly. The everything was about how crazy Night Court could be. They just came up with his theme and the whole thing, and they carried it off. They carried it through for, a number of years. And he was really great at kind of being, he was almost like the master of ceremonies, playing the judge, but he really was, for the show, he was the guy. He was the central figure on that show and really pulled it off.
And it was so fast paced.
Yeah.
That's
it really
the thing.
was.
It was bam, 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 bam. It was a great show. Ran 9 years,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then remember, he was Harry the Hat on Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah, and he played Dave Barry on Dave's World.
Yes, he did. Yes,
yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, almost forgot about that.
Right, and pulled that off, by the way, which would be hard to do, I would think.
Yeah, I know.
Here's your forecast.
After a weekend and start to the week of some heavy snow for some northern tier states, spring-like conditions continue to evade portions of the country. The Northeast and Midwest have the potential for more snow and icing today, especially in these overnight hours. Look for mixed precip in these early morning hours for the state of Indiana. Past Columbus, Ohio, you'll get into rain showers. Those will continue into the New England states, and then we pick up the chance for icing for a good portion of the state of Maine. Look for lake effect snow in portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. In the west, a mixed bag of rain on the coast. Heavy at times for California today. There is plenty of spring-like weather on tap for the south today. In fact, more like summer temperatures in store for portions of Texas. Could get above 85 in Dallas. For Atlanta, a little more comfortable, 72 the high. And there's a look at your national weather forecast from Red Eye Radio. I'm meteorologist John Trout.
Thanks so much, John. 866-90 Red Eye.
anytime, 24 hours a day. Say, Alexa, play Red Eye Radio, and we thank you.
And he's Eric Hurley. I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. Also coming up here, the Supreme Court to review the sales tax issue, and you and I talked about it yesterday. We'll get to more of that. I mean, we talked about it off the air.
Right.
Actually, you were talking to me more about it. I was listening.
Yeah, it's an intriguing case, and we'll talk about that coming up, what it might or might not empower states to do.
Starbucks vows unconscious bias training. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. You have to be careful where you put the commas there and everything. The punctuation matters there because it's not unconscious. You know, you're not unconscious and they give you bias training. It's unconscious bias training.
Why can't it be unconscious bias training?
So are you saying that the baristas and managers need race training, yet they were going to lead the discussion on race just a year and a half ago?
Well,
with their customers?
Are you not as a company calling those employees racist?
Yes.
If they have to go through training, Gary.
Well, unconsciously.
See, that's the question. Are they going to be awake?
I was tell you about the Federal Communications Chair response to Democrats after the call for an investigation of Sinclair Broadcasting. He said, "I think not. There's a little thing called free speech.
Yeah,
they can do whatever they want."
Well, it's so bizarre. It is so bizarre.
It really is. But again, what it gets to though is the left then calling for basically censorship.
Well, they are.
Well,
do they call for that with with MSNBC or CNN or ABC or CBS or NBC?
No. And we'll also tell you about a federal judge and what he says about transgenders, all coming up here. Jonathan Turley. We've talked about him before. Jonathan Turley is a constitutional law professor. Also appears quite frequently as a guest on all the 24/7 news channels. He is a professor of public interest law at George Washington University. Also writes for The Hill, and he wrote, "Comey tell-all violates all the rules of justice." And the reason that we've used Jonathan Turley and Dershowitz in the past is because they're not supporters of Donald Trump.
Right.
You know, they don't, their day-to-day politics differ. But I've followed them long enough, and I think you followed them long enough to see that on a lot of issues, I'm not saying all issues, but on a lot of issues, they seem to be constructionists. Would you agree? I mean, they seem to be, I'll say all issues, but on a lot of issues,
right,
they seem to be,
they have a clear, I think they have a clear handle and clear interpretation of the Constitution.
Now, we disagree with Turley, for example, that he believes a special prosecutor. He agreed with the call for a special prosecutor. We disagreed with that because there was no specific crime. I'd still like to ask him that question someday as, hey, why do you, if there's no specific crime, because take the parties out of it, take Trump out of it, take Comey out of it, just generically. Should there be an allegation that's made without any probable cause or any specific even allegation that triggers a special prosecutor for every president that comes along?
Well, because
forget about the names.
Because all you have to do is start the conversation. And by the way, you could look at every election, and there is likely some level of attempted interference by foreign entities. In modern times, I'm going to say it's likely there are no exceptions to that. Whether it's North Korea, Russia, China, or anyone else or any other foreign entity, at least one of them in every election cycle is trying to influence the election. So if this is what it's based on, then yes, then every president going forward should be assigned a special counsel to look in to see if that president who won as a candidate interfered and worked with any foreign entity to change that election. Because if we're just going to make this up and grasp things out of the thin air, then I guess we should go full on to make sure we protect the company's voting process.
And the question that I would ask him is, constitutionally, we don't investigate people, we investigate crimes.
Yes.
And in this case with Robert Mueller, we're investigating a person.
Yep.
And to me, there's a huge constitutional problem there. And so that's one of the questions that I would ask him. But the point is, he wrote this op-ed piece in the Hill, and he talks about all he starts it out with all the personal things that Comey brought up, and everything from the his face with his under his eyes, how he made a mental note to check his hand size, and his marriage, and Turley writes here. I almost said Hurley. I'm thinking of Jonathan Hurley. He said, one could easily ask what any of this has to do with justice as an ideal, let alone the Justice Department as an institution. Comey's book makes the answer plain. Nothing. Comey is selling himself with the vigor of a Kardashian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We came up with that
first.
Thank
you, Mr. Turley, for listening. We greatly appreciate that.
And the viciousness of a Trump. While professing to write a book to protect the FBI as an institution, Comey is doing that institution untold harm by joining the list of tell-all authors. Until this week, the very notion of a tell-all book by a former FBI director would have been a contradiction in terms. Past directors haven't done that. That ended with Comey's $100 a ticket book tour to get the nitty-gritty on Trump. Both the book and Comey's sit-down with George Stephanopoulos on ABC News feature a carefully constructed image of Comey as the virtuous man thrown into the pit of perdition that is the Trump White House. Comey was largely unchallenged in the interview as he claimed to be the guardian of the FBI.
Oh.
If true, it is a curious way to go about that. Comey was the most senior person investigating the president, and that investigation is ongoing. Prosecutors and former prosecutors are not supposed to discuss active investigations in the public. What a great point!
Well, here's the thing. When we left the show Friday morning, what I said is that if you were to see, the question would be from Stephanopoulos, the must ask would be, do you believe that the president is working with or worked with the Russians as a candidate, or anyone on his team did? And the answer would be, inevitably, you're not going to show it in the teaser, but this would be the answer from Comey. I don't think it's appropriate to comment on an ongoing investigation. But that question and that answer never happened.
It cannot benefit this investigation if Comey hold forth on the underlying facts or reference disclosed and undisclosed evidence, nor is it helpful to his role as a cooperating witness. Witnesses are generally asked to avoid public comments, let alone tell-all books. Notable figures like John Dean and even Monica Lewinsky waited for the underlying investigations and proceedings to end before cashing in or telling their stories. Not Comey. Timing is everything in a tell-all book, and telling this tale will now make him an exceedingly wealthy man. Comey has a history of acting in his own interest at such moments. When he was fired, he took memos he prepared during the investigation. These were clearly FBI material, and 4 of the 7 memos are viewed as classified. Comey never informed the FBI, and he gave 4 to a friend to leak to the press. He could have given them to investigators or to Congress, but he leaked them to control the press narrative. He instantly went from being an unpopular director, particularly with Democrats, to being a wronged civil servant. It's not just classified information that might have been compromised. Some people wonder about sharing their own secrets with Comey. Just ask John Kelly. Comey writes in his book that Trump's chief of staff called him to express support and to denounce Comey's firing as dishonorable. He said Kelly intended to resign. If true, this was a personal and confidential call, but Comey revealed it as an obvious risk to Kelly, and it worked. The Kelly story added buzz to the book's rollout. What is most telling is how Comey continues to commit the very violations that led to calls for his firing. Stephanopoulos questioned Comey about his controversial decision to disclose information on the Clinton investigation. Before Comey was fired, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein wrote a memo that went after Comey for his serious mistakes as FBI director and noted that both Democrats and Republicans were calling for his termination. He cited former Attorney General, judges, and leading prosecutors who believe Comey violated his obligation to preserve, protect, and defend the traditions of the department and the FBI and violated longstanding Justice Department policies and traditions. He added that Comey refused to admit his error. And, and that's one of the things that, they say that his official firing notice was the fact that he went and did the press conference on somebody they weren't going to indict. You don't do that.
Right.
So when he went out and did the whole press conference on Hillary Clinton, not supposed to do that. Basically, his job was to take the information that he had. And who wrote it? It was in the Wall Street Journal, an op-ed piece. Somebody wrote an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. I can't think of who it was at the moment. But said if everybody acted like Comey just went out and did whatever he wanted to do.
Right.
He didn't follow protocol.
Right. Well, we talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
Well, why not Sally Yates? If not, the Attorney General at the time herself, if she's recused, then Sally Yates would be the next to do that. The job of the FBI, while they can recommend and sit with the AG's office and say, okay, here's what we found, here's what we believe is weak, and here's what we believe is strong, here's what we think about this. It is not the position of the FBI director. It is not. In fact, my question is this. How did he get that authority? Because if it wasn't given to him, if he wasn't given a directive to do that, to make that announcement and announce that decision, if he wasn't given a directive, then he acted completely out of line. It's one of the two. Either someone ordered him to do that or he did it without the authority.
And he talks, more about the things that Comey did wrong. But really, you and I asked this a couple of weeks ago. We said, what does Comey have? He's got to have something incredible if he's going to do this, because all he can do is hurt himself. And that's all he's done. Oh, except the fact that he'll make a lot of money off the tour because suckers will want to go and see him and will want to buy his book.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If you want to get in, we do have a line open. We would love to hear from you. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. And finally, and Jonathan Turley's article goes on for a while, but he says, Comey stating publicly that, quote, I think it's possible, end of quote, the Russians have compromising material on Trump, and made repeated reference to the possibility that Trump had prostitutes in Moscow hotel urinate on each other and the bed once used by the Obamas. Rather than saying the allegation remained unverified, Comey said with the signature wide-eyed shock that it could have happened. In that one statement, he showed exactly why so many thought he should have been fired on Inauguration Day.
Yeah. Well, and I said it after watching him twice on Capitol Hill. He should have never been the FBI director. I know all of these accolades, by his colleagues, former colleagues, and all of this, but I'm sorry. Just the way he answered those questions on Capitol Hill twice told me enough, all of what I needed to know about his critical thinking skills. This guy's just flat out weird. And I'm sorry, if you believe he's not politically driven, then you're just not paying attention, or you're lying to yourself.
And then he writes here, Comey went into his thinking about, the Hillary Clinton, the couple weeks before. I don't remember consciously thinking about that, but it must have been because I was operating in a world where Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump. And so I'm sure it was a factor. Like I said, I don't remember spelling it out, but it had to have been that she's going to be elected president, and if I hide this from the American people, she'll be illegitimate the moment she's elected, the moment it comes out. Where in the Justice Department guidelines is the FBI official given license to follow the polls and take actions to legitimize political figures? Comey seemed unfazed by the obvious contradiction when he declared, if I ever start considering whose political fortunes will be affected by a decision, we're done. We're just another player in the tribal battle, end of quote. So he's contradicting himself in the same interview. I mean, it was just if you think about it. For an FBI director, it was unbelievable.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. This is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, 866-90-RED-EYE. I'm Gary McNamara along with Eric Harley.
This hour for Freightliner, Run Smart, helping you run more efficiently, is Freightliner's #1 goal.
Before we get to the fact, the Supreme Court is going to hear the sales tax issue today.
Yeah.
But this is interesting. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office is warning that many news articles on the Trump-Russia probe have been wrong.
Well,
the statement from a spokesperson did not single out particular stories, but the warning did come after media inquiries about a McClatchy news story on Friday that said Mr. Mueller has evidence that President Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, did in fact travel to Prague in 2016 as alleged by the Christopher Steele dossier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the story didn't say that they had evidence. It said that the source told them that Mueller has evidence, and
right.
It seems like right after that, we get to Monday. That story came out on Friday, and Monday, Mueller's office releases a press release that many stories out there, and the stories being generated about what may be true, majority of them come from the mainstream media.
Yeah, well, and you think about the what it's been, time after time during the investigation since Mueller has been in place as special prosecutor. How many things have we heard from the mainstream media that seemed like a big story, like late breaking in the day, right, in the afternoon or evening, and by the next morning there was nothing else on it. That Mueller's going to be doing this, Mueller's going to be doing that, Mueller's going to be. And nothing. Now, we won't know until this entire thing is done exactly how much of that is true. But if you're looking, I guess, if you're watching the media, and if your guide is the media coverage of all this, sources say, all of these stories have seemed to have gone nowhere. Interesting, though, if it is accurate that someone from Mueller's team, or if it is accurate that the stories, many of the stories are inaccurate, I don't think that's news to a lot of us. I mean, because I won't believe anything until the investigation is over, one way or the other.
What I've been telling all reporters, here it is, quote, what I've been telling all reporters is that many stories about our investigation have been inaccurate. The Mueller spokesperson said, be very cautious about any source that claims to have knowledge about our investigations and dig deep into what their claim is before reporting on it. If another outlet reports something, don't run with it unless you have your own sourcing to back it up, end of quote. The statement was reported by the Daily Caller and confirmed by the Washington Times. The McClatchy story on Friday lit up liberal media outlets since, if true, it would confirm a major charge by the British ex-spy. Mr. Steele wrote that Mr. Cohen traveled secretly to Prague in August of 2016 to meet Vladimir Putin aides to conspire to cover up Russian hacking of Democratic Party computers. In other words, Trump-Russia collusion. There has been no official or press confirmation of Mr. Steele's Prague allegation, nor of a number of other Steele collusion charges. His work was financed by the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign. For his part, Mr. Cohen has repeatedly denied under oath, and thus under penalty of perjury, that he traveled to Prague. In fact, if he did go there, he would be unlikely to lie under oath to Congress, since the FBI's investigative powers would be able to track his movements.
Right.
And that's the whole point. I have a feeling somebody has tracked his movements. And he already says he's got the evidence of where he was, on the dates that they, claim that he was there. And so, that who jumped on that story? Meathead.
Yeah, right.
Rob Reiner jumped on it. Yeah. Meathead jumped on it, and it's like, see, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Well, they keep doing that. And this is what I was referring to when it comes to the Comey book or the Comey interview. They thought it was going to be a gotcha moment Sunday night. Bombshell time. It's not.
I'll repeat what I said yesterday. He did more damage to the FBI and the Obama administration.
Yep.
And actually, in my humble opinion, has helped to make Trump look like a victim.
Yeah.
I think his appearance has done the by the way, from what we know so far, Trump is a victim, from the information we know so far, of absolutely unfounded allegations of colluding with the Russians to hack the election.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the Molar team is saying many of the stories in the media are wrong, and think about the one part of that statement. If you have a story, make sure you go with your own sources. In today's world, they all do it. Daily Caller will do it. The Washington Post will do it on their website. That the New York Times is reporting this.
Oh, yeah.
They do their story of the work done at the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And the point from the Molar team is you need to make sure that you've got your own sources. What they're saying is these things catch like wildfire, which they do. The Times reports something, next thing you know, everybody's doing their own report on what the Times is reporting. So have your own sources. Don't just be sourcing another story. What they're saying is that's where they're getting it wrong, is because it is basically it's not just social media, but the echo chamber of the internet, because everyone essentially is just copying everybody else's work. No, it's not exactly plagiarism.
No, I mean, they're giving credit.
And they often give a link to it.
Well, we do. I mean, we do that. We don't report. We don't make our stories on it. We'll comment on stories that are done.
Yeah, we're not reporters.
Yeah, we're not reporters.
We don't write the news. We don't report things unless it's breaking news, and we source everything that we're given. We're opinion makers. So when you look at the the entire statement here by the Molar team, it makes you wonder exactly what is going on with this investigation. What are they actually looking at? What do they actually have? And where is it taking them? Because we've said for months and months, if you're not looking at the Perkins Coie thing, Fusion GPS thing, then you're not looking at the whole case.
Yeah.
If you're not looking into the genesis of all of this, then you're not looking at the entire case. If you're not looking at where all of this began, I don't know if it was a given, but I don't know that it's any great shock that Molar with any of the indictments that have come down so far, I don't know that that's necessarily shocking. lying to investigators or wire fraud or things that are, clear or something that may have happened. In terms of a gross abuse of power, not misuse, but abuse of power, if that was what was going on under the previous administration, and we have evidence that points in that direction, then there's absolutely no way. Because if it is true that Molar, I saw the story today, the headline today, Molar's not on either side. He doesn't lean in any direction. He's just trying to find, the truth. All right. If that's true, if that's accurate, then he would have to be looking at everything. And it starts with what? It starts with how those warrants were obtained. It starts with the surveillance. It starts with the unmasking.
Well,
it starts with all of that stuff that we know was based on bogus information.
Why aren't Republicans talking about that?
I don't know.
In a way, because this is, and I would ask this if it was a Trey Gowdy, if it was why isn't this brought up or be part of the Republican narrative? And this would be a question that I would ask to the Justice Department, and I would ask, Jeff Sessions or Rosenstein, if he's questioned, I would say, well, look, this whole thing that Trump colluded with the Russians to hack the election, which then became to change the outcome of the election. That's why a special prosecutor was brought aboard.
Mm-hmm.
We know the evidence. You know it. Nobody's denying it. The Hillary campaign has admitted they gave the money to Perkins Coie, and so did the DNC. Perkins Coie then gave the money to Fusion GPS, which then hired Christopher Steele, that then got salacious, unverified information from the Russians to use it to destroy the Donald Trump campaign. And when they couldn't do that, then they used it to try to make his presidency seem illegitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Mueller going down that road?
Well,
because that would be the logical thing would be, as you and I have stated before, that the Trump collusion came from what? It came from all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So aren't you going to backtrack that entire? Aren't you going to don't you as Mueller, number one, say, okay, where did the allegation come from? Well, then you follow the allegation, correct? As an investigator, you follow the allegation.
You started the basis. You started the genesis of all of it, which is my point. How can you, if it's true that they're saying, Mueller's not on anyone's side, okay. For the sake of the argument, we'll just assume that's true. I have no idea. I really don't know. But if that's the case, if he is a thorough investigator, if he is doing the work, then he starts there. You have to start at the beginning. You have to start at where those warrants, how those warrants were obtained. Okay, what was used in petitioning for those warrants?
Right.
Because you might look at the investigator or as a special prosecutor, you might look at the investigation, and some people may think that, well, they would ignore if the FISA court saw that it was justified in terms of a warrant, any FISA warrant was justified, it is not up to a special prosecutor to question that. Actually, it is. Because we're really talking about political motive on both sides.
Well, as an investigator, you have to go to the source of the allegation.
Well, you have
of
to
the
go.
Crime.
You have to go to, and this gets back to, and we're just a few weeks away from the hearing date of the sentencing hearing for Michael Flynn, which was delayed. I think May 5th or May 8th is the date.
Oh, wow.
So why was that delayed? He pleaded. Well, when you plead, what is there to delay?
It's funny because I've asked everybody I know, that has anything to do with law enforcement or investigation or anything to do with Washington, D.C. or whatever, wherever they are in the media. And I've asked them that question. I get a blank stare back from everybody.
Right.
I said, well, wouldn't that be the logical thing? If you're Mueller, you've got to be investigating, because if you're talking about Russian collusion and the attempt to influence the election, the only place it ever came from, the only connect the dots you can find is the Hillary campaign in the DNC. So doesn't Mueller have to be investigating it because his starting point would have been the original allegation? That was the starting point.
Well,
how do you even get to Manafort unless, forget about Manafort. You got to Manafort somehow. I don't know how he got there. You're getting to Cohen somewhere. Well, wait a minute. The original thing would have been allegation. Trump colluded with the Russians. Where'd the allegation come from? Oh, it came from Christopher Steele. Okay, let's follow that. Let's look at the FISA warrant. Let's look at that. Was it legitimate? Mm-hmm. Then you go through all of the process there and any crime that may come out of all of that, and you go all the way back, through Christopher Steele, then through Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie to the DNC, and you go after and you subpoena all of their records, correct? Mm-hmm. In order to find out, because that was your whole thing was Russian collusion to change the outcome of the election. Mm-hmm. And even and specifically Trump colluding, but the original allegation takes you in the different direction to where it's exactly the opposite of what you were told. It was the people claiming that Trump was colluding that were actually colluding. Mm-hmm. Does he go down that road?
I don't know how you start an investigation without starting at the beginning.
That's a question you and I I've asked everybody I know for the last 9 months. I get nothing. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds right to me.
Well, because the question would be, is there any communication or any kind of evidence that shows that those that were petitioning for those FISA warrants were doing so knowing that they were using false information in that petition?
Right.
Remember, they left out the source. We know that now. Mm-hmm. They left out the source. Well, if they left out the source, why did you leave out the source? Why would each time that you signed off on that application for the warrant, and it was multiple people, they left out the source of the dossier?
And everybody knows who the source is, including Robert Molar.
We know now right. Who that is. So why would you go out of your way? Because when you're petitioning for a warrant, you're trying to prove to the court that you have something substantial. Not only would you, if you thought it was legitimate, you would want to prove where it came from and how you got it, yet that wasn't the case in any of those applications.
So many questions, so few answers still. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Drivers, there are lots of ELD solutions on the market. Magellan has a terrific solution. Mark Perini from Magellan tells us more.
At Magellan, we focus on making sure all drivers have an easy and low-cost way to be in compliance with the new ELD mandate, and including, and perhaps most importantly, owner-operators. We currently offer an ELD solution at the lowest price on the market, at just $10 a month or $120 a year. And our solution plugs in with 5 minutes time, reducing the need for any IT support. We're excited to offer such a simple yet effective solution to owner-operators who want a robust and trouble-free solution to the ELD mandate. We created this ELD A2S solution as an affordable option for independent drivers and smaller owner-operators and fleets who needed to become compliant, but did not need a lot of add-on features of other ELD solutions on the market. We've got the lowest priced ELD on the market right now, and an independent owner-operator will be able to access the ELD device through their own smartphone or a tablet. All they need to do is connect the Magellan ELD dongle into the JBus port in their vehicle to the dashboard and download Magellan's ELD HOS app, pair the app's dongle, and set up their HOS account, and they're ready to go.
For more, you can log on to MagellanGPS.com/redeye. That's MagellanGPS.com/redeye. Meritor's Driver Report, brought to you by TA Truck Service Road Squad. If you break down, we show up. 800-924-SHOP.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE.
This hour for Freightliner, Run Smart, helping you run more efficiently, is Freightliner's #1 goal.
All right, so will the the internet sales tax be decided here in the next couple of days with the answer in June? Now, we were talking about the Supreme Court going to look at, it's actually Wayfair versus South Dakota versus Wayfair.
Yeah.
Because South Dakota is trying to collect, any sales tax.
From Wayfair.com.
Right.
Large retailer. And what they're looking to do, because South Dakota is collecting from Wayfair, or wants to collect from Wayfair. Wayfair does not have a physical presence in that state.
Right.
Now, this goes back to actually the Quill case in 1992, which was actually back in the day from catalogs. And we'll talk more about this here in just a few minutes.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are saying it's unlikely the Supreme Court will overturn the Quill decision, but we'll talk more about it and what it could mean if they do.
Here.
Join Gary and Eric in the Octagon now. 1-866-90-RED-EYE.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE.
This hour for Freightliner, Run Smart. Helping you run more efficiently is Freightliner's number one goal.
So here we go. The Supreme Court tomorrow will hear from both sides, starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
It probably only last, tomorrow. They normally don't last that long because they've already got the briefs. These are just the oral arguments that are being made on South Dakota versus Wayfair, which is internet sales tax.
Right. It comes from Wayfair, like all internet companies, they will sell to anybody in any state. Now, there was a precedent set, a 1992 decision, the Quill case from 1992, which actually goes back to the catalog ordering days. And also there's a 1998 law that Congress enacted that basically says that these internet companies have to have a physical presence in these states in order for the state to collect sales tax. Amazon has a physical presence in every state. And so the company, from their sales, from what they sell of theirs, they collect sales tax. Third-party sellers on Amazon don't always. A lot of them do. Most of the major, really large e-retailers do collect sales taxes, and they also, there's a couple dozen of them, the largest, have a physical presence in pretty much every state. So they collect a sales tax for those states that have sales taxes. What South Dakota is wanting Wayfair to do is pay a sales tax on those sales, but Wayfair does not have a physical presence in that state. So basically what they're asking South Dakota is asking the Supreme Court to do is overturn the Quill case from 1992, which would be a Supreme Court decision, overturn their own decision, and also overturn this 1998 Internet Sales Act that basically reestablishes and supports that Quill case. It would be not that the thank you, Chief Justice Roberts, a couple of times legislating from the bench. Not that they haven't legislated from the bench, but this would be so blatant in creating new sales tax law. What's interesting here is you and I were both on the same CNBC story. Now, they make a mistake in this story. Because
it's actually an op-ed piece, Steve Del Bianco, President and CEO of NetChoice, who wrote it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. He points out here, those seeking to overturn Quill, including President Trump, think it's a way to force internet retailers like Amazon to pay more sales tax. They are gravely mistaken. Now, I haven't seen the president actually say that about this case. What the president and his surrogates were talking about was really promoting a new internet sales tax, which would then require an act of Congress to do. And that would be an internet sales tax that says, essentially, if a state wants to charge you sales tax, from internet sales, they don't have to require it, which would basically be Congress overturning the 1998 Internet Tax Freedom Act. And if they wanted to repeal that act and then give those states the ability to collect sales from companies that don't have a physical presence, then Congress would have to do that. For the Supreme Court to decide with South Dakota here and overturn the Quill case, and essentially they would be effectively overturning the 1998 Internet Sales Freedom Act, that would be a huge, massive legislating from the bench move.
Right, and frankly, most people don't see that happening. But the president was also, he wasn't. I didn't hear the president specifically talking about this case. As you said, he was talking about a brand new internet sales tax on a national level.
Because what we have to go back to is one of his surrogates saying, and this I think it was one of the press secretaries, deputy press secretary, was saying that it's still not fair, even though Amazon collects, when they pointed out to him, the deputy press secretary, that Amazon does collect sales tax in those states that have sales taxes. He said, yeah, but the president still thinks it's unfair because there is no internet sales tax. Well, what he's pointing out is that it doesn't exist yet, which is to say that the president believes that there should be one. And so that would require Congress. The president can't do that, and the Supreme Court shouldn't do that, although they could make a decision that would overturn this 1998 law,
right, and
overturn the Quill decision.
But the two things are separate.
No, those are very separate. The president may be looking for the same thing, but I've never seen the president comment that if they overturn Quill and this 1998 law at the Supreme Court level, it's going to do what he wanted. That's not what he was getting at, according to his deputy press secretary. The president is not happy that there is no internet sales tax, which is to say that he believes there should be one, which is also to say that Congress must create that, because that's how laws create.
Because his problem was not the ins and outs of whether you have a physical presence or not.
Right, no.
His was just, he believes that, and this is through a variety of different articles, that he believes an economy is better when you don't get packages to your doorstep.
Right.
And that when you actually have to go to a brick and mortar to pick them up, and it's government's role to force you or to give you extra incentive to not get packages delivered to your door.
Yeah, right.
And that's why he wants a sales tax on that to, as he said, even the playing field between the internet retailers overall, all of them.
Right.
Now, but this thing here, as I think he does point out, is just going to kill small startups. It's going to kill individuals that are attempting, or small businesses that are trying to get in to the internet business, or it's going to hurt. Here's the thing: it'll hurt brick and mortar who's trying to get into
e-commerce.
Yeah, because if they've got to collect, what do they say? 46 different states with 12,000 different taxing entities.
Yes.
That Amazon could do it, but they don't need to because they have a presence in every state. But the small mom and pop, because that was big a couple of weeks ago, the whole mom and pop, it's going to kill.
Yeah. This is something that we have to keep in mind, is that the companies aren't going to get hurt by this. The consumer, if you're creating a new tax, talking about what the president would like to see, according to his surrogates, the consumer pays the tax. The companies don't pay the tax. They collect the tax and they pass it on to the taxing entity. It is not part of their revenue. They collect it. They send the check, equal amount, to the taxing entity. That's how it works.
And let me ask you this. The president has been quiet on that.
Yeah. Probably,
I have to ask the question. Larry Kudlow?
Well, because I think it's something that we have to talk about if we're going to talk about taxing these companies. You're not taxing the company. You're taxing the consumer. You know, one guy called in one night and, you know, I look to get the best price I can, and I look for all these that don't have taxes, and these companies need to be charging taxes. Wait a minute. You just spent this entire spiel telling us how you look to get out of paying the taxes. Now you're telling us you want to pay more. But that's how it works. You pay the tax. It's not the company that's going to get hurt. They're going to collect it from you. It's your sales tax in whatever, you know, area you live in that applies. So, you know, if you're talking about should it apply equally, we can have that discussion. But here's the question. Is that equal? If it is a brick and mortar, if there is a special internet sales tax that goes into effect, talking about, again, the president's plan, or according to his deputy press secretary, you know, pointing to an internet sales tax, which tells us that's what the president wants. If we're to implement a new internet sales tax, you're essentially giving those states that don't have a sales tax on brick and mortar the authority, potentially. It depends on how the law is written. But you're potentially giving them the ability to tax the sales on the internet. Is that fair if brick and mortar isn't collecting a sales tax from you, but internet is?
I look at this and I wonder how this even got to the Supreme Court, though. You would think that, and again, I'm getting into dangerous territory trying to figure out what the Supreme Court does. But when you see something that has clear precedent, now it was for catalog shopping, but you have clear precedent.
The 1992
right,
case
from
decision.
So you see that, but then you see the Internet Tax Freedom Act enacted by Congress in 1998, which then made it clear because it was internet.
Yeah.
So you see both the precedent and then you see the law, and you wonder why the Supreme Court is hearing it to begin with.
Why would they would even hear it? Yeah, I question that too.
And unless you would think that what their thought process is in hearing this is the fact of, okay, the law is the internet law is there. Now it's time to back it up on the internet, not catalog, but back it up on the internet with a Supreme Court decision.
It would be two questions. One is a virtual presence. A presence. So if you are, because then you basically have a presence in every taxing jurisdiction on the planet. Wow. But of course that wouldn't apply outside the U.S. That's not, for the Supreme Court to enforce or decide. But still, it's a huge, huge question, right? And then beyond that, what is the point of sale? Because that's been going back and forth for years. Is the point of sale the point where you, as the consumer, click on the button, or is it where, in this case, where Wayfair is set up and has a physical presence?
Well, I guess my point isn't on the specifics of the issue, but the constitutional precedent and the fact that Congress has passed a law on it. Congress gets to set up when it's, interstate. Mm-hmm. Congress gets to set that law. Mm-hmm. The law doesn't have to be fair when it comes to taxes. Taxes aren't fair. Mm-hmm. Everybody got a break in the last tax law except Eric and Gary. We have to pay more. Mm-hmm. Okay, that might be misrepresenting it just a little bit. Tax policy isn't fair, but Congress can dictate tax policy that people don't believe is fair.
And by the way, the Supreme Court was the decider on the Quill case in 1992.
Right.
So look at the massive, huge wall which begs the question: why are they even hearing it? Because 1992, that was a decision by the Supreme Court. 1998, that was a law written by Congress.
So what would be the justification for overturning it?
Because you're overturning both.
Right.
You're overturning
your precedent.
Yes.
And something that's even more powerful than your precedent, and that's Congress passing a law.
Tax law.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Wait.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. By the way, I don't see the national sales tax that the White House has, I guess, thrown a trial balloon out there for going anywhere. There isn't any member of Congress. I don't believe there's Democrats in Congress.
Right.
Well, there's got to be a couple Democrats. But the majority of Democrats probably would not vote for an internet sales tax.
No, not one on a wide scale. The question would be is what if the Supreme Court, I don't expect them to overturn the Quill case and this 1998 law. But if they were to make a decision that effectively did both, what kind of reach would it give these states? Would it only apply to states that collect a sales tax to begin with? Or would it give the states that don't collect sales tax the ability to tax internet sales?
Just tax internet? Yeah, it would.
Because I don't see why it wouldn't. Now, those legislatures in those states, I think, would have to come up with their own law.
Right.
You can't just collect a tax based on...
No. You have to come up with the law, of course. Legislation would have to do that.
So politically, can they do that on the state level? Well, in some states, they probably could.
My point is, you're getting to the case now where the Supreme Court is setting tax law.
Yeah, right.
Without question, if the Supreme Court did this, they'd be saying, "Okay, forget about what Congress says. We're gonna make law by ourselves and do this." I don't see that happening on taxes. I just don't.
No, I don't. Not right now. I don't.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. This is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, 866-90-RED-EYE. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thanks so much for being here this morning. We do appreciate it. If you'd like to get aboard, we do have a line open, 866-90-RED-EYE. Would love to talk with you, even if you disagree with us. Put up with it. Just don't hurt our feelings. We're very, 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 very sensitive people.
Yeah.
Extremely sensitive. Just so you know, it was a big day for me yesterday.
It was?
Yes. Big day.
Really?
I opened up the pool.
What pool would that be?
My pool.
You own a pool?
You know I own a pool.
Since when?
You
mean the moat?
The moat, yes. It's known as the moat. I'm sorry. It's known as the moat. Yes.
Oh, okay.
The moat. The moat around my castle.
Yeah.
Well, at least it covers the back. You can't get through the back. The moat's there.
There's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's I had to get a new bottom skimmer and all that, and I had to clean the. It was.
I'm sorry for the pool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bottom skimmer for the pool.
Oh, okay.
Which is the moat.
Well, I don't know. You know, you're getting older now, so I have no idea what your medical needs are.
Oh, a bottom skimmer?
Yeah, I don't listen, and it's none of my business.
I haven't been to Prague.
I'm none of my business. That guy's a real bottom skimmer.
So,
what
for the pool? Then I had to clean the filth. Wow, now everything sounds perverted.
Yeah.
I can't even talk about cleaning a pool anymore.
I have no idea.
I'm blushing over opening my pool.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
And then it was 69 degrees, and I jumped in.
What?
I had to jump in the pool. I will admit I did jump in unofficially in March once when the pool got up to like 74. We had
jumped or fell.
I jumped in
okay.
that because the pool got up to 74 one time. But this, and then just we've had so much wind and stuff's in the pool, and then my bottom skimmer stopped working, so I had to get a new one. So it was 11 years
old.
For the pool? For the pool,
okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm just asking questions.
And I like to, I have to admit,
what?
You jump in when it's that cold and you stay in for a minute or two. Minor hypothermia really makes you sleep great. I took my blood pressure.
Yeah.
Half hour after I was in the pool. 99/55.
Yeah, you might want to just not do that a lot.
Close to death.
Just saying.
I can get it that low anyway, even if right before I go to sleep when I'm really tired. When I take it, it can be that. It can be that. Normally, it's like 116 over whatever it is, the 60 to 65.
220, 221, whatever it takes.
When I was first, diagnosed, with the blood sugar problem, and even though my blood sugar is normal now, when I was first diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, that was one of the things. My blood pressure that was fine went through the roof. I mean, it went through the roof. They were like, it's stroke-like. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never had problems. So they believe the type 2 diabetes kicked it off. Yeah, because, when your blood sugar gets high, everything is working maximum. So, yeah.
Right.
So once, but.
How high was it? Your blood pressure?
When I had shingles. Yeah.
Oh.
When I got the shingles and it really hit bad, and I had to go and I went to the, basically I was in New York when it happened. I was with my parents. They took me to the place, and my blood pressure was fine just 6 months before, and I didn't take it all the time because it was fine. 220/120.
Wow. 220/120.
Yeah. 220.
Wow.
Yep.
That's really high.
So they immediately sent me to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And they figured it was a combination of the shingles, and that's when they discovered, because when I came back here, I went to the doctor, and they, did the full blood workup, and they said, your blood sugar is really high. I go, what are you talking about? They all were like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And they believed it all hit, because my A1C, which is the 6 month, was right at, at normal level, right at the level of normal and pre-diabetes level. That was my A1C. My daily blood sugar was type 2 diabetes.
Right.
It was like one in the 140s. And so they said, who knows? I said, well, he said, whatever is in your genetics kicked off, and boom, like that. And it was in that period of a couple of weeks, they believe, when, the genetics kicked off. So I'm happy that it happened, because it's been almost 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but it was the best thing that ever happened.
Well, that you discovered it. That there was something that
I discovered it then, and it helped me really pay attention to my diet.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's just made me, healthier overall. But when you first get it, it's pretty scary. But I think my last A1C, which is 3 months, was like a 5.2, which is
good. That's good.
Totally, that's totally normal.
What
range.
below an 8, or what is it?
Well, I think you're supposed to be below a 7.
Okay.
Because I think a 7, I believe, is when probably damage is being done. I was never over a 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I caught it right at the beginning, so I'm down to a 5.2. I think below 6, below 5 point, I think it's like between 4, 5, and 5.7 is normal blood sugar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, good.
So yeah, but the blood pressure, is pretty. It's pretty normal,
And if it's not, you can just jump in the pool.
Yeah, I just jump in the pools.
Yeah.
It was one of those days of just working
with your bottom skimmer.
It was a good day working with the bottom.
Working with the bottom.
Cleaning the pool. See, I don't have a sand thing. I don't just backwash. I actually have to clean the filters. I got to put them in this great big pail and that's got detergent in and let it soak for a while. Each one, I got 4 huge cartridges you got to take out, and then you spray them all down and get all the dirt out of it. It's But I like doing that. I feel like working around a pool makes me feel like I'm a teenager. It really does.
Working around a pool made me feel like I was a dad. You know, when you have children, and of course, so it was our first 3 children, and they were young, and then our 3 nephews. Well, then each of them has a friend. So now it's a dozen kids. And that wasn't the case, of course, every day. But during the summer, I mean, you know, they swam a lot. So the pool basically just became a job for me. I mean, my wife would, you know, she would say, even after a run, you don't swim much anymore because the pool represents work. Because, I mean, at that point, you really have to work at it every day.
Yeah.
Because you have, a bunch of kids in the pool, and kids are dirty. I don't know if people know this, but they're filthy little creatures. They really are. They're not very smart either.
And isn't it interesting, once you own a pool, you understand. You never did when you were a kid, and they said, don't pee in the pool.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's another reason I didn't go back in.
Don't
because I had kids.
Another note: don't pee in the pool in Prague.
Yeah,
but
so
to get to. But
here's the thing: is a bedwetting problem is now something totally different, isn't it?
I know. Yes. So it's interesting that when you have to take care of a pool and you do the chemicals every day. Mm-hmm. Now the thing is, during the wintertime, I have a saltwater pool. And I've got the couple of chemicals in it that make it so during the wintertime, you don't got to do anything to it. You just, I can go a month and nothing happens to the pool. As soon as the sun starts coming, getting higher in the sky, the sun starts beating down in the pool, starts getting hotter. It's a different ballgame, but I have a saltwater pool, but it's pretty easy to take care of. But still, you understand that everything in your pool is a chemical reaction. And once you understand how the chlorine works, and once you understand, well, if you do anything in the pool or anything that the chlorine attacks it, and then after the chlorine attacks it, it makes it the dead organic matter, which then you've got to burn off that dead organic matter, which is why you use the oxidizing shock in it. And then it means that you've got to have the right pH, and then the right alkalinity has to be, and it's just like, wow. But once you get it, it's really cool, because it's like, before I had my cat, I had a pet, and it was people say, you got a pet? I go, yeah, my pool. Mm-hmm. I go, why? I go, because it's a living organism. Mm-hmm. And once you understand it...
It has its own bottom skimmer.
It has its own bottom skimmer. Oh, by the way, at the same time I was doing all my pool work, I was also cleaning and totally sanitizing my automated kitty litter.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were cleaning your oven.
No.
Okay.
No. But it was a busy day yesterday. And I felt very, very productive by the end of the day.
Yeah,
and I fell asleep. I woke up, felt like I had done some major barbiturates. Because I woke up, I was like dead to the world. It was. By the way, I don't actually know what that feels like since I've never done barbiturates, but I assume that's what it would feel like. I would like to make that
people
clear.
Always say that. Man, this tastes like dirt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When did you eat dirt? By the way, I use dirt instead of another word. We're the station that cares.
We are the station that cares. Just briefly, did you see the Sean Hannity thing with the?
Yeah, with Cohen and all that. Okay, so. Here's the thing. There's the fact
that he was a client of
if you know of a conflict and you're in the media, you should probably state that. Like if there's a story that comes up and I don't know, it names one of our sponsors or something like that. If you and I are talking about that story, and I think we have in a few cases, we'll say. If we're aware of it. By the way, I'm not aware of the full list of sponsors of this program, just to be, out there with everyone. I honestly don't know because
we actually don't. Cause we don't hear them in the
studio. There's a number of, we have so many stations. They also have local sponsors, and we don't hear the ads here on this end, so we don't know. I know a number of them because I have great relationships with them, and we're grateful for them. But the point being is that if you know of a conflict and you're covering something, or you're issuing an opinion on something, that you should state, what the facts are that present that conflict to your audience, so that they can know that you're being forthcoming with them. And we were having this discussion in the pre-show meeting. That's what Hannity should have done with Cohen, and from the beginning. If you're going to talk about the Cohen raid, if you're going to talk about Cohen, then you should say, for the record, Cohen has been a legal advisor or whatever the case is. That's what it should be. You don't have to necessarily go any further than that, but it's better to be forthcoming.
Right, because then you don't have to go through what what he's going through right now, which is being put on the defensive, or the perception that you've done, which is ridiculous. The perception that you've done something wrong because because you share a lawyer. Now, you and I both have problems with wondering, well, why did the judge have to announce that? Why did the judge feel that they had to, let everybody know who his clients were? That bothers me when it gets to, and I know that there is no attorney-client privilege when it comes to whether somebody is your attorney or not. It's what they're actually working at. But still, that bothered me some. But to show you that, we always think about that in the media. And not because we have any major perception of conflicts. I think for clarity's sake, for example, we have for a couple of years, probably, I'm going to guess maybe 3 years ago, started talking about Ben Shapiro. Mm-hmm. And some of the great work we think that he has that he has done. Mm-hmm. And about 3 weeks ago, he got, I think his podcast has become a radio show, mm-hmm. which our company has picked up.
Right.
And when we mentioned Ben the other day, we mentioned that. Mm-hmm. And we did that. I've never met Ben Shapiro. I may never meet Ben Shapiro. We have, when it comes to a work relationship, there is no work relationship. Mm-hmm. Wasn't involved in hiring him. He wasn't involved in us getting hired. We have no direct communication or even indirect communication. But we it's just transparency. Mm-hmm. And I think I've done it for so long, and you've done it for so long, where you just automatically go, oh, just mention it. If we mention, especially in a story, we'll say, by the way. And I think I did that with Harvey Weinstein. Mm-hmm. And it really doesn't matter that I worked for Harvey Weinstein 38 years ago, mm-hmm. at a club that he used to own. I thought it was an interesting part of the story, but I also said, no, if you're going to talk about it, you need to let people know that one time you worked for him. Doesn't mean anything, doesn't change anything.
No, and the Hannity thing doesn't change anything, because there's no reason to believe that Hannity himself has broken any law. It's more about etiquette. It's really, that's what it covers. Even Ben Shapiro on Twitter the other day, last week, I think it was, and he tweeted about the movie Chappaquiddick and said, look, the movie is advertising on my show.
Yeah, exactly.
And, just so you know that, but even if they weren't, the movie is really terrific. You should see it. So he was giving it a recommendation, but wanted to, let people know, mm-hmm. Of what they might perceive as a conflict, or him, I don't know, giving some kind of paid endorsement, which apparently it was not.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 866-90-RED-EYE. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Coming up, following the bottom of the hour, I want to play this audio cut because I thought it was really interesting. A former FBI official who was there for 20 years, over 20 years, or for 25 years, and said, I've been there almost 20% of the existence of the FBI, and had a couple of things to say about Comey. Originally was furious when Comey was fired, but said since then things that had developed, whoa, and says he believes, doesn't know Comey, but believes it's a lack of character. So
right.
we'll get to that and more. And his solution about what Trump should have done is exactly what we talked about yesterday. And that's the reason I'm playing is because there's somebody's in the FBI, and I don't know all the protocols and everything that goes on, in law enforcement. Over the length of time, I've been doing talk radio. You come to see what good law enforcement does, and you can educate yourself as to what the actions of law enforcement and the leaders of law enforcement should be. And we were really right on what we said yesterday. So we'll get to that and more, plus more your calls and comments. If you'd like to get in, we would love to hear from you. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Here's your forecast.
After a weekend and start to the week of some heavy snow for some northern tier states, spring-like conditions continue to evade portions of the country. The Northeast and Midwest have the potential for more snow and icing today, especially in these overnight hours. Look for mixed precip in these early morning hours for the state of Indiana. Past Columbus, Ohio, you'll get into rain showers. Those will continue into the New England states, and then we pick up the chance for icing for a good portion of the state of Maine. Look for lake effect snow in portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. In the west, a mixed bag of rain on the coast. Heavy at times for California today. There is plenty of spring-like weather on tap for the south today. In fact, more like summer temperatures in store for portions of Texas. Could get above 85 in Dallas. For Atlanta, a little more comfortable, 72 the high. And there's a look at your national weather forecast from Red Eye Radio. I'm meteorologist John Trout.
Thanks so much, John. Also coming up, Starbucks vows to have training for unconscious bias.
Okay.
We'll get to that and exactly what that means, and wonder whether they should be doing training for conscious bias, too.
Here.
Undeniably irrefutable. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. He's Eric Hurley. I'm Gary McNamara. When we were talking about James Comey yesterday, we had talked about what he should have done and the questions that we had way back when, even on July 5th, 2016, when he decided to make a public press conference that he was not going to go after Hillary Clinton. He was recommending no charges. And we said, why is he doing this? Well, Loretta Lynch had recused herself. Fine, then you go to Sally Yates, who was deputy attorney general. You just don't do it yourself. You just don't go and do it. And at that point, we had we had said that. And this is covered here. This is from CNN. And it shows you, even on CNN, that when they bring on law enforcement people, you really don't have anybody passionately defending James Comey. It just isn't happening.
No.
And this is a guy who was furious when he was fired. Furious. James Gagliano, CNN law enforcement analyst, and here was his comments.
Well, Fred, firstly, I want to be careful because I don't know James Comey personally, but in the 110-year history of the FBI, I served for 25 years under 4 different FBI directors. So I spent my 20% of the FBI's history, I was there to witness it. I think what we're witnessing right now is a diminution of the stature, the 6'8" stature of this man who's now shrunk down to basically a Lilliputian. And why is this? I don't think James Comey's a bad man. I think James Comey's a decent person. What I think happened here is because of the weight of the consequences that were thrust upon him, and we can talk about how he ended up there and why he had to make these decisions, I think it was his feckless leadership. And the word feckless I choose carefully because it means lacking the strength of character. What should have happened after he was put into that position on the Phoenix tarmac where he had to make that July 5th statement, which was unprecedented for an FBI director to do, he should have punted the ball back across the street to the Department of Justice after Loretta Lynch recused herself and put that squarely on the desk of Sally Yates. He didn't do it. He allowed political calculus to come into his decision-making as an FBI director, and he's right to be criticized. Now, the director's manner of doing that, or I'm sorry, the president's manner, not the way I would choose to do it. I think it's beneath the dignity of the office, but I do believe his decisions and this book tour are worthy of criticism.
And it's exactly what we said, yesterday about, Sally Yates. This should have gone to the deputy. That, he had no right to, go out and do that. And it was James Freeman in the Wall Street Journal that wrote the same point. He goes, if everybody just did what they wanted to do in the federal government, you'd have complete anarchy. And that's what Comey actually did. He just did what he wanted to do. Now, I want to go back to this because he also, and I think it's important to understand where he is coming from. I mean, just don't listen to us. Listen to people that, for example, were furious when Comey was fired and actually backed Comey at times that have backtracked on it. And here's, as this interview continues here.
Worthy of criticism.
And so I wonder, James, those were a number of different, markers in the last year, particularly of the former FBI director's career. But do you believe because of the firing and the manner in which the firing took place, that is what compelled him to say, I want to get my version of events on paper, whether it be by, handing over notes to a friend way back when or now, in the manner of a book, and that's what compelled him to have this tell-all.
James Comey owned the high ground. On May 10th, I came on CNN first thing in the morning, and I was angry. I talked about the repugnant, reprehensible actions of firing a career public servant, dispatching him the way that the president did. I was angry. But the revelations that have since come through, the things we've seen when he testified in front of the Senate Intel Committee and he told Senator Dianne Feinstein that those 9 interactions with the president, which left him feeling, nauseous, he wished that somebody, maybe with a stronger backbone or character, would have acted differently. He talked about Loretta Lynch and her asking him to call the investigation a matter, the one into Hillary Clinton's emails. He says, I felt queasy, but I felt it wasn't a hill to die on. Well, I disagree, as many former agents and current on-board employees do, with that. I don't think James Comey's a bad man. I just think he was the wrong person at the wrong time to prevent the politicization of the bureau we love.
Wow.
Well,
James Gagliano on CNN.
It's that idea that Comey pretended to project in his testimony on Capitol Hill, to protect that integrity of the FBI and those agents out there that are working hard every day on a number of cases. But he did anything but that. Not only in the book, not only in the interview, but frankly, in his testimony on Capitol Hill twice. And of course, what he, in fact, bragged about doing. He didn't, not only did he not deny it, he bragged about leaking to his friend immediately after being fired.
And Gagliano went on further to say, here's where James Comey runs afoul. He runs afoul of the fact that he is still an FBI employee. And I said, what? No, he's not. Well, yeah, he was fired. But he said an FBI employee is defined as one who holds or previously held a position of trust within the agency. As an FBI employee, one of the prohibitive disclosures, and his book is rife with them, says that you are not allowed to talk about anything related to open or ongoing cases or investigations. The Russia probe, the IG report, has not been released in its entirety, and a number of other different investigations on Capitol Hill James Comey is not just a peripheral witness, he is a central witness. And I think that's where he will run afoul of the law, to David's point, but he will run afoul of the Department of Justice. So there you go. And like I said, I mean, it's you and I asked this questions, when we found out he was going to do the book tour and everything else. Go, what are you talking about? And we brought up all those things, not being members of law enforcement, but saying active investigation still going on. What is he doing?
Right.
Why would you do that?
Well, because you look at the efforts of the work that forget about his own work. If he wants to diminish the efforts of that investigation up to the point that he was fired, that's on him. But it's about everyone else who worked on that case. If he indeed is looking to protect the integrity of any case or any work done by that agency, because that investigation was turned over to Molar. That investigation still continues.
Yep.
There is still information at the FBI related to this investigation, in possession of the FBI. So why in the world would you even, if someone wanted to, write your life story, that's great. Why would you even mention anything in relation to the investigation?
James Comey has come off the excerpts of the book, the interview. He comes across as a emotional basket case, not a professional law enforcement investigator.
He's whining.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, he's whining, and he sounds like a disgruntled employee.
Right.
That's what he sounds like.
And the fact that he doesn't have the judgment to understand what he is doing is destroying his own reputation and the reputation of the FBI. The fact that he seems to be completely clueless of that, with criticism coming in from the left and right on this, is extremely telling, does damage to the FBI, does damage to the credibility of the integrity of the FBI, and actually makes Donald Trump's case stronger.
Right.
That this is a witch hunt. Just think about it. Comey comes across as an emotional basket case, not a professional law enforcement official.
Well, and here's the other thing. And I really don't know, because I just don't know how the mind of James Comey works. But think to yourself, what do we know? Because he said it. He's not a fan of the president.
Really?
If there were a solid case based on that, because that's really the only thing we really know about Comey, personally speaking, right? I mean, aside from his family life, that he is, married and has children. But him...
that are Hillary supporters, probably.
Yes, all of them are Hillary supporters, including his wife. They went out and they marched the day after the inauguration. He said it. But aside from that, aside from, his personal life, those details, what do we know about him? The only thing we really know about him is that he's the former head of the FBI and that he doesn't like Trump. In terms of his current mindset, he's not a fan of the president. So if he believed that the information, that the case were going somewhere in a case against Trump, or a strong case against anyone associated with his campaign in relation to Russian interference with the election, would he even, if you're a Trump hater and you're in that position and you know it's going somewhere, what's the last thing you would do? The last thing you would do is go on a book tour.
Is what he's doing.
The last thing you would do is talk to the media endlessly. The last thing you would do is almost brag about how much you hate this guy. Because you would not want, at any level, one chance, not even 1% chance, and the whole Melania thing, that you would spill
I
the
picked
case.
that up. Thank you for explaining it.
You would not want to compromise the case. Because forget about, you clearly don't care about the agents left behind.
No. That was a lie.
I don't know that you care about
lie.
Mueller. But what I do know is you care about your hatred for this president, and you would love to see him removed. You believe that he is morally unfit for office. He said it. If he believes that, the last thing he would do is go on a book tour, write a book, go on a book tour, and do a TV interview. He wouldn't want to compromise that case because he would want that case nice and tight against the president or anyone associated with his campaign in connection with Russians.
Tell us where we're wrong, or tell us where we're right. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Curley. I'm Gary McNamara. We go to Kent in Illinois. Kent, you're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, my only point was that, Comey has no idea about what's going on in the Southern District of New York, period. He doesn't know what, Cohen had or didn't have. He doesn't know what Cohen recorded or didn't record.
Whoa. What does that have to do with anything that we have talked about?
It has everything to do with Comey not undermining that part of the case.
That's not the Mueller case.
Right. That's
not correct.
You're missing the point of what we were talking about. We weren't talking about the Cohen raid.
Well,
we're talking about Russian collusion.
Right. We're talking about.
I thought your point was the Comey wouldn't do anything to undermine if he knew there was a potential to damage
the case of Russian collusion,
the Mueller investigation,
what he was involved in at that time.
Right. If you're looking to bring Trump down, you would not at all even approach anything with the Russian investigation.
Yes, that's our point.
The Cohen thing could be something different. We don't even know what's behind and what the raid and what the charges might be or pending charges might be against Cohen, or if they're even related.
Remember, Comey was talking about it might be the alleged unverified P incident might be true, and what do you say about blackmail?
That the president is potentially susceptible to blackmail from the Russians.
Right. Nice try to the last caller, but we're talking about the Russian collusion portion of it.
The case that he turned over to Mueller.
Right.
Which I was very clear in saying when I said it.
Yes.
Not about the Cohen raid. We have no idea what's going on with the Cohen raid or what pending charges there may be from that raid based on what they find.
Nice reach, though.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.